It's the weekend, time to relax or time to get out and do something exciting, something different with your time that gets the adrenaline pumping. Well, how about something you can share with the whole family, something adults and children can all compete in and where parents and their children can share in the success? Have you ever thought about kart racing? Now, whether you're 6 or 60, karting is a sport that spans the ages like no other, where adults can compete as well as children, either as competitors or as part of a team where mum and dad act as mechanics and in support roles for their child as the team driver, or even the other way round. Perhaps you've experienced indoor karting as part of a corporate or party event with your friends, found out you were pretty good, and are ready to move on to a machine capable of 70 to 140 miles per hour, 2 inches off the ground. Today's karts are high-spec, high-tech racing machines with full data logging capabilities in the form of an onboard GPS system, including a screen that shows you, as the driver, in real time your engine RPM, engine temperature, lap times including sector times, and a whole host of other data through sensors that allow you to map the circuit on a laptop after each session and replay your lap against other friends, drivers in your team, or other sessions to see where you have gained or lost time. There are karts for everyone who wants to race, starting at just 6 years of age with the Bambino class, and at Shennington recently I went through some of the more popular kart options with the Association of Racing Kart Schools Chief Instructor Gary Chapman. Gary, various karts on display we've got here today. Let's start off with some of the options people have got coming into the sport. Obviously at the youngest age group we've got the Bambino class, this kart here. Just tell us a little bit about this one.
Bambino is for your 6 to 8 year olds. It's a great class which has some structured training for the drivers to get into the class, and during the training they're going to be taught throttle control, brake control and how to steer the kart, along with racing lines and all the stuff that will then set them in place ready for the whole of their racing career.
Okay, and with this particular kart as well, I noticed this is a sort of, it looks like a typical Formula One old intermediate tyre. There's no slick tyres in Bambino, is there now? And the purpose for this is to teach them control.
Well, it's a great all-weather tyre, so you can use it in the dry and the wet, and it doesn't quite give you quite so much grip in the dry conditions, which yes allows you to develop sort of controlling oversteers and a little bit of understeer and that type of thing.
Okay, so that's 6 to 8 years of age. Once you get to 8 years of age, you're moving into the cadet classes, slick tyres, and a couple of options, 4-stroke and 2-stroke. This is the Honda 4-stroke.
Honda 4-stroke, great economy class, race throughout the country, but it's a slightly more economical level than the 2-stroke that we're going to talk about here. They are identical, they use the same chassis, they use the same tyres, wet and dry tyres for the different conditions, and they are fantastic for developing the racing into more with sort of like slipstreaming and towing, as well as the original driver control that we had with the Bambino kart.
Okay, so that's the 4-stroke, and then we've got the IARMI 2-stroke class. The MSA British Championship class.
That's right.
This one.
This is really the premier cadet class, which the national and the British championships are held for, and this is the class that you're going to see your future Lewis Hamiltons and people like that.
Okay, so from cadets then we move into the junior classes. This first one here, this is a direct drive kart, and for people new to the sport, just explain what that means.
That means that the wheels are directly linked to the engine, so when the engine is working the wheels have to be going round. To get these started we have to actually pick the rear up, do a couple of paces and then slam it into the ground to get over the compression, and then to stop the engine at the end of the drive all you simply do is just put your foot on the brake, no switches or anything to turn the engine off.
That's direct drive, and then we've got this version which is what's called a tag engine or touch and go electric start.
This has an onboard starter motor with an on-off switch and a starter button, but most importantly it has a centrifugal clutch on it, so that when the engine is running the rear wheels can stay stationary. This allows people to spin and then the engine will still keep going. When they come into the pits, all they simply have to do is switch the button off and it kills the engine.
One of the fun things about karting is learning the intricacies of setting the kart up, and in this particular kart, of course, we're starting to get into things like steering geometry. There's various adjustments that can be made at the front and back end, different types of axles, for example. People coming into the sport for the first time might think that that's quite daunting and it will take ages to learn, but actually, coming in as a karting dad, it's one of the fun things, isn't it, to really learn that and learn how the kart works.
It is definitely. The beauty of the sport of karting is that, unlike your arrive and drive, part of it is getting your kart to go faster than other people's karts. There's the fun driving element, but yeah, working on your kart to make it faster than anybody else's is a fantastic experience. But the settings, they tend to be relatively similar wherever you go to any circuit in the country, so it shouldn't be daunting for anybody.
And it's the one thing that really makes this sport so great for dads and even mums. I know mums to be mechanics as well, but mums and dads and their kids, it really is a great day out, and you do share in the success. If it's your child that happens to be driving, you're really sharing in the success because you've helped set the kart up and helped them to win effectively, haven't you?
All forms of motorsport is a team effort. Mums and dads helping their son, daughter do karting is fantastic, and it works to keep families together. What's better than spending a weekend together working on your sport, keeping that family unit together?
Yeah. And in these particular classes, there are junior and senior equivalents, aren't there?
That's correct. The juniors starting from the 11 and the seniors going from 16 years of age.
Okay, and once you come out of juniors, you're moving into seniors, whether it be direct drive or tag. But over here, we've got some other examples of senior karts, and these are seriously quick. Now, we've got a couple of different gearbox karts here. This is 125cc first of all. We've got a 250 over here. We'll have a look at it in a moment. Just to explain a little bit about this particular kart. Very, very quick.
This is a 125cc kart. There's a 6-speed gearbox. Operates very similar to a motorcycle gearbox, where it's just up and down, sequential shift.
Right, so you've got gear shifter here, up and down the box.
And we have your clutch just here. Only 2 pedals, throttle and brake, just like the other karts we've seen so far.
And this would race on short circuits like kart circuits, but it also races on long circuits like Silverstone Alton Park, for example.
Yeah, this is the premier short circuit kart. This is what the real World Championship is all about. But like you say, you can be racing at Silverstone, Donington, Cadwell Park, all those type of places.
Okay,
as well.
so that's 125cc. This is 250. Just explain some of the differences here.
This is a single piston engine, mainly used on the short circuits, what we would know as kart circuits, and then we have the twin engine ones which are used with your long circuit racing, your Doningtons, your Cadwell Parks, those type of tracks.
And of course, with both of these karts, different from the karts we were looking at before, front wheel braking as well.
Yeah, fantastic. 4-wheel braking, they can stop on a sixpence, but you need that with so much power.
So I guess, Gary, the question really is for anybody coming into the sport for the first time, what's the advice? What class do they go for?
The most important thing is that you go to the local circuit so you can see what is being raced at that circuit. There's no point in driving around by yourself. You want to be in a class with 20, 30 drivers. That way you've always got somebody to race against. Karting is kart racing, not driving around by yourself.
There are some other classes for juniors and seniors. They're all described in the Want to Start Karting brochure. If you want to find your local kart club and circuit, then check out the Association of British Kart Clubs website at abkc.org.uk.
Karting has the ability to transcend other sports where skill combines with mental strength and adrenaline. It's a character-building sport that teaches discipline, self-control and belief, and helps you understand the value of working within a team, whether that's as part of a professional setup or a family team where everyone in the family has a role to play. The sport has a value beyond the competition itself, and at the Autosport show recently, I caught up with a karting mum and her son who told me about how the sport has helped to shape their relationship.
The relationship that we have with Alex has progressed over the years since he started karting. We've become a very close family. we travel all over the country, and we're always together, travelling up and down the motorways to get to circuits. And once we get to the circuit, I'm there really to make sure that Alex gets up at the right time and get his dad up at the right time as well to get out onto the track, and be sure there that Alex, he eats the right things and he's on time for driver's briefing, etc. And then it's just amazing to watch the relationship that Alex has with his dad. That's special. The two of them, they get into the nitty-gritty of the performance of the kart and so forth before, during and after a race. And the two of them have really gelled together, and it's lovely to see that. And I'm just so pleased that we've got this family time together. Alex has developed in confidence so much over the last 2 years in particular, and the support that he's got from everybody. But we're just happy as a family, and we have our moments throughout the year whenever maybe certain races don't go just to plan, and I'm there to pick up the pieces and have the tissues on hand. That's for me, not for Alex. And then there's the times when we celebrate the successes as well, and it's a special time.
Since I've started racing, like my relationship with my mum and dad has grew bigger, just through the ups and downs in karting, and as we're from Cornwall, like travelling the distances, we've had lots of laughs on the way up on the motorway, and it's like I've got to know them better, like know I'm family with them and everything, but it's almost like we're better friends than we were when we weren't doing it.
A typical race weekend can start with a practice day on the Saturday where you get plenty of sessions to test your kart's performance, in particular how your kart is geared for the circuit, which can be changed using different size rear sprockets. There are other changeable items such as tyre pressures of course, caster camber and toe settings of the front wheels, which is typically carried out in the modern era with the use of a laser device as seen here. There are different types of axles, they come in soft, medium and hard versions, and a whole host of other things. Part of the fun of the sport is learning about these things as you go, but don't worry, there is always plenty of advice available to help you out when you're new to the sport.
That's when the engine chucks, and then we need to lean the carburettor off to give you more revs at the top end, which makes you quicker down the straight.
Race day on a Sunday starts with a driver's briefing. The clerk of the course is the person in charge of the event and will run through a series of instructions with the drivers and answer any questions the drivers may have. We spoke to International Clerk of the Course Nigel Edwards about his role at a typical kart meeting.
The role really of the clerk of the course is two things really. One is safety and one is carrying out the judicial matters on track. So obviously it's important that all our drivers are kept safe and we work in a safe environment on track, but also to carry out the rules and regulations that we have to work to. So that usually involves incidents on the track, trying to sort those out. The whole day though actually begins, and I think it's very important that the clerks need to set their stall out by having a driver's briefing. And I think at the driver's briefing what we do is we make it very clear on some very specifics. That could be for each track or each venue or each event that we run. But generally to make it crystal clear to the driver what those important key features are about that particular meeting. I feel that once you've actually done that, you've actually got a little bit of trust in the drivers that you're working with, and that to me always works very well. Obviously to be polite, courteous is always a good thing, and sometimes it's difficult to make that interaction with the drivers at times, but to me a very important part of the day, safety, judicial, and getting the ear of the driver. So that's where we start from. Then generally as the day unfolds we go through usually heats or pre-finals, which is a precursor to the main events. What we're looking for is a safety aspect, so we want to make sure that we run in the circuit in a safe manner. If there are incidents we deal with them in a professional and proper manner so that we look after the driver. And then what we actually do then at the end of that is if there are judicial, so if there's been an incident on the track, the clerk with his observers or the other clerks. We're fortunate at Trent and a lot of other clubs now as well do have cameras either on board the karts or off circuit, which I know there's an expense to that, but I think in the modern world and the modern karting that we're in, I think that is a big help to the drivers. The drivers like to think that they're getting a fair deal. And I think that is the right thing to do. So we would make these judgments on that, and then we'd carry out penalties if they were needed. So at the end of the day, we can get a nice fair balance of a winning driver winning in a fair and professional manner.
At the start of a race day, you will take your kart through a scrutineering process where qualified MSA scrutineers will ensure as far as possible that your kart and clothing comply with basic safety requirements, although ultimately it is your responsibility to ensure your equipment is always safe to race once the meeting is underway. Each kart must have a transponder fitted so the timing system can register your laps, including sector and lap times. You can either buy your own or hire one from the local organising club for a fee. Once that's done, it's off to a short 3-lap morning practice so you can check that your kart is working correctly before the racing starts. Before you're released onto the circuit, karts are formed up on what's called the dummy grid, situated just off the circuit itself with direct access to it. The karts are released by the dummy grid marshal onto the circuit for a formation lap, where you stay in formation at a controlled pace prior to the start of the race, usually by a rolling start, but it can be a standing start for gearbox and some other classes at certain events. As you approach the start line, the lights will be red. Once the starter is happy, he will turn off the lights and the race will get underway. A race meeting may be made up of either a timed qualifying session followed by heats where you start in the position on the grid that you qualified, followed by a pre-final, the grid for which is based on your performance in those heats, and then a grand final where your grid position is determined by where you finished the pre-final. Alternatively, many clubs operate a system whereby you take part typically in 3 heats with starting positions towards the front, the middle and back of the grid. If you're a novice, for your first 5 races you will always start at the back of the grid for the heats, but you score points in each heat which determine where you start the all-important final race of the day. So even as a novice, if you are amazingly talented, you could still end up on pole for the final, which is where the trophies are earned. Once the checkered flag is waved, the drivers slow down and drive off the circuit into Parc Fermé, where your kart may be weighed to ensure you meet the minimum weight requirement for your class, and a highly qualified scrutineer may check your equipment to ensure it complies with the regulations. Results are posted on the official notice board so you can check where you finish compared to other drivers, and then it's off to the trophy presentation. In the modern era, many events both at national and club level are now televised, so you may find yourself being interviewed before the racing gets underway for a feature interview or after the race on the podium. However, many people of all ages enjoy affordable karting so much they never leave. Take Bobby Game for example. The multiple British champion, now in his 40s, is still racing karts and regularly beats drivers young enough to be his children.
I'm just still in it really because I enjoy it. I mean, a lot of people kind of lose that along the way because they're all trying to go somewhere and do as well as they can to maybe have a career in it and move on into cars. I've kind of been in that position before, retired for a little while and then came back because we missed it, and I really enjoy racing.
Alan, you've come through karting as a sport and you're a great supporter of the sport, and you've talked a lot about how the sport prepares drivers for motorsport, but it's a great sport in itself, isn't it? Just talk a little bit about your history in the sport and why it's so important.
Well, I started quite a long time ago now in karting. It was 1981, and I had spent 5 seasons racing karts in national, club, international level. But if I'm being honest with you, if I didn't race cars as a profession, as a job if you like, I would race karts as a hobby, because I think it is the most pure form. The driver, the interaction with the driver in the kart, what he learns, the discipline he learns, the racecraft that they learn is so important and so much better than a lot of other areas. But the other thing is it's a big family sport as well. You know, my mum and dad were involved. We went there weekends and, you know, we had some glory times and came back smiling, and we had some times we came back a little bit less so. But that was all just part of the big fabric of it. And I have to say, some of the best races of my career and biggest wins of my career were actually in karting.
I started back in 2002, built my way up through British karting, through Super 1. My first British Championship was in Minimax, which meant a lot to me because at that time it's where I was finding my feet, and it was the first time that I was competitive. So moving on from that, I went out to Europe, won the European Championship out there, which was the highlight of my karting career, and then progressed into cars like most people do these days, and built my way up slowly but surely, and I got the opportunity in Abu Dhabi to make my F1 debut, and it's great to look back over the years and where I've learned. But at the end of the day, everyone starts in karting, and that's where you really build everything from the beginning with your racecraft, how to overtake, and the basics of motorsport, and that sticks for you the whole way through.
Arguably, nobody more than Lewis Hamilton has helped to raise the profile of karting with his constant references to how the sport helped him on his way to worldwide recognition and success in Formula One. In fact, the vast majority of professional drivers started by racing in karts as cadets and juniors, and somewhere racing in UK karting today, there are cadet and junior drivers who will be future F1 stars. Karts have changed massively since the early days of the sport and now look like mini racing cars with bodywork and onboard data logging technology. But what happens when you're unfortunate enough to crash at your local club meeting? Well, every club will have a kart trader with lots of specific and generic parts designed to keep you racing, so you don't have to carry every spare you need. They'll also provide advice and support during race meetings. Many are members of the BKIA, the British Kart Industry Association, and at Houghton Park recently I spoke to the local trader there, Dave Wilson.
You can come along to a kart trade at the circuit and ask for an axle or a steering component, something like that, and they'll have them there for you, which means that obviously you don't have to stock up on a lot of spares, costly spares maybe that you would never use. So when you need something, you can go across to them, and generally speaking they'll have them, keep you going, finish the race meeting off for you.
There are, of course, a whole host of online traders and trade magazines carrying a number of adverts for everything from a nut or bolt to whole karts, both new and used. Your next step is to go to your local club meeting. Have a look at the ABKC website to find out where your local club is. Give them a call and ask when the next club meeting is being held. Pop along, preferably on the Saturday practice day when most people have got a little bit more time on their hands. Walk around the paddock and ask some questions. So how do you go about getting an MSA kart race licence? Well, you can take a course at one of the professional ARC schools, all of which are listed on the arcs.co.uk website. You will need to get an ARCS pack which contains application forms, books and a DVD giving you all of the information you will need to pass your test. Find an ARC school and examiner local to you, then arrange for a suitable day to take your test. Fill in the application form before you go and remember to take a passport photo with you. You will be shown a shortened version of the DVD in the pack before taking a driving test on track using your own kart and equipment, or equipment the school can provide. Then it's off to take your written exam. All of the questions are multiple choice and are covered in the pack. If by chance you do fail the test on the day, don't worry, you can resit the exam later. Kart clubs have a regular need for officials and marshals to help out and make sure the meetings are run professionally. If you're interested in helping out or training as a marshal, get in touch with your local club who can point you in the right direction for training and advice. Safety is paramount, and if you're unfortunate enough to be involved in an accident, qualified paramedics and ambulances are always on hand.
Now that you've had the opportunity to watch this short film, I hope you'll take the chance to find out more and become part of the sport of karting, whether it's as a driver, mechanic, a karting mum or dad providing the all-important backup and support, a marshal or even just a spectator. I'm confident that once you give it a go, you'll absolutely love it. Well, that's all we've got time for now. I hope to be interviewing you on a podium for our broadcast television coverage sometime soon. Until then, it's goodbye for now and thanks for watching.